Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another round Basis Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Now, I was actually gonna do a Basis Picks yesterday for the British cards that were taking place. As you know, the weigh-ins for the Terence Crawford card didn't happen in the on the broadcast until like 5 a.m. in the morning, sort of 5-6 a.m. so I was going to do one for that and then do a separate one for this. But if I'm totally honest, the one in the UK, I couldn't bring myself to do it. There's a UK show, there's an Ireland show also from the Zone. I think it's like a Conlon boxing promotions card. I'm not going to really go into that. All I want to speak about before I get started with the main picks on this one, on the Sky Sports and Boxer card, there's 4 fights. Conor Coyle, who came on the channel a couple weeks back, he's facing Carl Lamotti, very last minute opponent. I think Carl is like 12-1. Obviously Conor's like 20-0. Quick one. I've got Conor Coyle winning that one on points. Stephen McKenna is facing Joe Laws. McKenna is 14-0 with 13 KOs, and Joe Laws I think is 14-2, something like that. Yep, I've got Stephen McKenna winning that one. I think I've got him winning via stoppage, mid to late rounds. Caroline Dubois versus Myro Moneo. I've got Caroline winning that one on points. Just better, sort of quicker to the draw. Gonna win the exchange in the combinations. Not gonna get involved in the rough and tough unless she really has to. But I can also see her hurting Moira somewhere in the mid rounds to that fight. So yeah, I'm going with a points decision, possibly a very late stoppage, but I do think it will. Moira's tough enough, it will go to points. And then finally you got Zach Chelli versus Callum Simpson. Chelli is 15-1 and Callum Simpson is 14-0. I think Zach Chelli basically has a style where he'll sort of hit and then smother, so he'll be able to get on the inside, hit, smother, get the point, so to speak, and then like stop you from being able to get your work off, and that's going to be a bit of a frustrating style. But Callum Simpson being, I think, like the slightly rangier guy, a bit more explosive than Zach Chelli. He hasn't had the same level of opposition that Zelli has faced, but I do think that he's basically got the momentum on his side. Obviously it's his hometown. It's going to be in Barnsley. It's going to be at his club's football ground. I can't see a way that he doesn't manage to come away with this. I do think it goes points. I don't think he's going to be strong enough to be able to get Zach Chelli out of there, but I think that slight extra bit of quality is going to tell, and you're going to see Callum Simpson get the victory. So with that being said, those fights down, like I said, I'm not worried about the other card that's going to take place. But now let's get into the main picks of the card, why we're here today. So we got Terence Crawford versus Israel Madrimov. There's 6 bouts on the main card. Now look, I fully expect Andy Cruz to get a stoppage over Antonio Moran. I don't think it's going to be early, to be honest. I do actually think it's going to be in the mid to late rounds, especially if Moran's a bit more durable, a bit more wily than he used to be. But I won't really break down that one too much. I also expect David Morrell to get a stoppage victory over Hot Rod Kolazic, and I expect that one to come in those mid rounds as well, sort of about rounds 5 to 6. But let's get into the main 4 fights on this card that everyone's talking about. First and foremost, we've got Jared the real Big Baby Anderson, so I have to get that first part in there, versus Martin Bakole. And in this fight, 2 things that I've looked at. Martin Bakole has come in at 284 pounds. Jared Anderson's come in at 251. Every time I've seen Jared Anderson above 242 pounds, he's won, but he's also laboured and not necessarily had the right work rate. Obviously, the fights prior to that, when he's been sort of 239, which to me is normally around about his best weight, 239. He's nice, sort of limber, quick. He's got, you know, he fires big rapid combinations. He's able to get people out of there quickly. Whenever he's sort of above, just like I said, that 242 type, sometimes the rounds drag. Obviously, he hasn't gone the distance many times, but the performances just look a little bit laboured, like he's just certain times just looking for a shot here and there. He's coming at 251 pounds. Now, part of that might be him trying to say to Martin, like, you're not gonna be able to push me about, you're not going to be able to outsize me and whatever. But unfortunately, even though Martin Bakole is also overweight, he's been a lot more used to being a bigger guy. And if you're trying to play big guy tactics with a guy that's naturally bigger than you, that's only going to compromise your performance, from the gas tank to the speed, to, you know, even sometimes to the power. I mean, if we look at the perfect example of that was, well, there's two perfect examples. One was Joseph Parker and Joe Joyce, when he came in at sort of 256 pounds trying to match Joe Joyce for the big size, and he ended up gassing out and, you know, having to take a beating and then just getting stopped late in the fight. On the sub side of that, you've got Joe Joyce and Jean Gelé, where Joe Joyce said, oh, well, all I've got to do is put on size to match the size of this other guy, who ended up putting on even more size, and him then getting knocked out in 3 rounds. Now, Anderson's best opportunities for this was his speed and his speed, his combinations, and his movement to try and get into angles, and the fact that he can switch it a little bit. But he likes to throw to the body at times to time. The problem with him throwing to the body is he doesn't really throw straight shots to the body. He likes to come inside and throw body shots. Anywhere on the mid-range to the inside is where Martin Bakole is going to excel. He's not the quickest of guys, so he's not going to want to go around the ring looking for his opponent. If Jared Anderson comes towards him and actually sort of engages him in that way, Martin Bakole throws better body shots than Jared Anderson does. He visibly hurts everyone with body shots. He hurt Hulk, what's his name, Shevardowski. He hurt him with the body shots. He hurt Carlos Takam with the body shots. You know, the way that you have success against a Bakole is you have to be fast, you have to be quick on the draw, and then you have to try and get on the inside and smother and make the referee have to block, and then you re-engage and you do the same thing, rinse and repeat. I've seen several frailties in Jared Anderson as of late. While he's tremendously talented, he's got the combinations, he's got the punch power, he's even got the movement and the angles and the fairly tight footwork, but he's been fed a lot of guys who are in and around sort of between 6 foot to 6'3" in height, where he is a 6'4" guy, so he's always normally had the height advantage. In the one fight where he didn't have the height advantage against Charles Martin, yes, he managed to drop Charles Martin in that fight, and he did do quite well. Charles Martin, on 7 days notice, a very stationary target, not a big mover, was able to catch him several times when he would pull back out of range, because that same pullback tactic works against all the guys that are shorter than him. All of a sudden, you've got a guy that was taller with a longer reach, and he started getting caught. And not only did he get caught, he got badly hurt in the last couple of rounds in that fight. Luckily, it was only a 10-rounder. Martin Bakole, I'm pretty sure Martin Bakole and Billy Nelson would have noticed that. They are also the taller, bigger fighters in here, and Martin Bakole knows how to throw straight shots as well as throwing those devastating hooks to the body. I'm questioning whether or not Jared Anderson's got the strength and the toughness to go through the fire in this one, like for more than one round. And I can see a situation where he's on top, he's in the ascendancy in this in the first sort of 4 or 5 rounds, but then he starts to get busted up and hurt with shots like later on, and how he comes through that. I don't think he's gonna come through it. I think he's gonna end up capitulating just through the size, the pressure, the punishment. I'm not sure if he's gonna get a knockout. I'm not sure if he's gonna get knocked out clean. It could be a corner stoppage, it could be a capitulation, it maybe could be a mercy stoppage by a referee, but ultimately I'm going with Martin Bakoli to win this one, stoppage victory within the late rounds. I think it's going to happen sort of round 7, between round 7, 8 and 9, somewhere in there. Yeah, that's sort of my opinion on that one. Moving up one now, we've got Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Jarrell, the Big Baby Miller. So the second of the big babies on this card. Now, Miller said he had said that he lost about 45 pounds for this fight. Now, in the last fight, he came in at about 330 something pounds, and he weighed in this one 305. So when he says that he lost like 45-50 pounds, is he talking about from the fight they weigh in, or is he talking about what he was walking around at after he had the fight with Daniel Dubois? But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He has lost some weight, and he actually looks very... I've always said Jarrell Miller is one of those weird specimens that even though he's there over 300 pounds, he actually carries weight well. A bit like Joe Joyce. So I used to say Joe Joyce he was able to carry size well and not look massively like flabby and overweight. But he's dropped the 30 pounds or the 20. I'd say he's dropped about 30 pounds based on the last weigh-in. What I will say is, because it was 30 pounds of fat and not like a loads of other like muscle or anything like that, I don't think there's going to be much of a risk of his punching power and stuff being compromised. Because I remember back in the day he did speak about, there was a time I think he was weighing 200 and I think he was 300 pounds in one, and then he went down to like 285 in the next one, and he was saying that he didn't feel right, he felt a bit weaker, he felt better when he was heavier. And Andy Ruiz has also said the same thing before, when he's lost too much weight too quickly, even though it was only like a whole load of fat. He said, yeah, like his punch resistance, everything kind of went a bit too quickly. So that is something to kind of keep an eye on. Jarrell Miller obviously said that he's been working for sort of the last 5-6 months to get that weight off and to get it down. If he's done it sort of in a bit more of a gradual state, then it should be okay. But if it was a crash one over like the last 2 to 3 months, that potentially could be an issue. 30 pounds is a lot, so that's something to look out for. He will have a better engine now, which means that he should be able to throw more punches than he did in the Daniel Dubois fight. In that fight, he was sort of very much trying to just use his size to push Daniel about, throwing the odd couple of shots here and there. Whereas on the other side, Andy Ruiz hasn't been in the ring for coming up to 2 years now. But the one thing I will say about that, as much as the layoff is a very bad thing, especially for someone who ends up as a front foot counter puncher and needs to be able to time their opponents, he had a big layoff before the Alexander Dimitrenko fight that he fought 5 weeks before the AJ fight where he got the upset. And he's had layoffs after that, and he's not necessarily looked great in those previous layoffs, but he's always come back and managed to get through it. He's managed to work it out and end up coming through adversities. So the layoff itself, I think, is only going to maybe be an issue in the first couple of rounds. Now, both of these guys are going to be front foot. Jarrell Miller is definitely the bigger and the stronger of the two. Andy Ruiz has got the faster hands, and even though he hasn't really got the greatest of feet, he's got pretty decent upper body movement for a guy his size. His catch and counters are going to be vital in this fight, and ultimately he's got to impose his will on this fight early, or hit Jarrell Miller with something hard early in this fight to stop Jarrell Miller being able to get that forward momentum. Because if Miller gets in a rhythm, Andy Ruiz is going to be fighting. He's going to be basically fighting uphill for the rest of the bout, and that may not be a position that he wants to be coming in, especially when he's coming in a bit heavier than he was, plus the 2 years. The one thing I will say is, him being overweight as he normally is, it's actually not really that much of a denigration to him, because a lot of like sort of the bigger, like the fatter guys, they always seem to have pretty decent stamina because they know how to fight as a fat guy. They know how to manage their weight, as opposed to someone that's kind of either always in shape or always trying to cut up to look a certain way. I reckon his ring management and his round management is going to be telling in this, and I feel like his extra ability, like natural ability in the boxing ring, is going to be what kind of sees him through. I reckon he's going to have some tough moments in the first half of this fight, especially when Jerome Miller is like freshest and probably is just trying to throw 3, 4, 6, 7 punch combinations and, you know, trying to overwhelm Andy Ruiz, but he's calm under fire. I've never really seen him like panic in a fight before, and due to that, his superior boxing skills, is, you know, his high amateur background, you know, his more rounds in the bank, I feel like he's gonna manage to make all the telling shots, a bit like Derek Chisora and Joe Joyce, whereas Jerome Miller's gonna be throwing the volume, but Andy Ruiz is going to be throwing the eye-catching stuff, or the stuff that connects. I wouldn't be surprised if either guy gets knocked down in this fight, but I do think it's going the distance, and I think the superior boxing skills of Andy Ruiz is going to just about see him through in a close points decision win. So that's my decision for that one. Moving over to Isaac Cruz versus Rio Valenzuela. Ultimately, Rayo is 135 pounder coming up, and Isaac Cruz is also 135 pounder holding a 140 pound belt. He's southpaw, Rayo Valenzuela southpaw, so that, I mean, could be a bit of an issue for Isaac Cruz. You know, it was in his fight just before last, you know, but ultimately he still managed to get into range. He still managed to throw what he needed to throw. Now Rayo Valenzuela he will try and follow the game plan. I think he's with Robert Garcia at the moment, and I'm sure that Garcia will have a game plan in mind, but defense isn't his ultimate strong suit. He is capable of getting hit. He did get hit a lot by Chris Colbert in their first fight. He obviously got hit too much by Edwin De Los Santos, where he got switched off in the 3rd round of their fight. Isaac Cruz is going to barrel forward, and I guess it's going to be how long can Valenzuela be able to implement this game plan and sort of get Isaac Cruz basically on the outside. I think that it's going to come to a point where he's going to be doing well in those first couple of rounds, but Isaac is when he's just going to keep applying that pressure, throwing those shots in. Eventually the pressure and the concentration is going to get to Valenzuela. I don't think he's going to see through all the rounds, because he's going to be the guy who's going to have to be on the back foot. Like, Isaac Cruz is not going to take a backward step. Rayo Valenzuela is going to be the one that's going to have to box and move, box smart. If he sits in the pocket, the naturally smaller guy who's going to throw those hooks from the inside from awkward angles is going to spring up from that crouching position. A lot of that, eventually he's going to miss one of those and he's going to get caught, so he has to stay on the outside. I don't know if he's got the engine to do that for the entire 12 rounds. So ultimately I'm looking at it, and I do think that due to, you know, the heavy pressure and the concentration, I do think Isaac Cruz is going to get in, and I think he's going to win the fight via stoppage. I think it's going to be sort of in the later rounds. I think it's going to occur about round 8, around 9, just due to like the constant pressure and the accumulation. But that's ultimately what I see there. So my prediction is Isaac Cruz to win that fight via late TKO. Now moving to the main event, this is going to be obviously this is the most interesting one. You've got Terence Bud Crawford versus Israel Madrimov, and it's at 154 pounds. Now the one thing that a lot of people have not really factored into this is at 154 pounds the gloves change, so you're no longer fighting in 8-ounce gloves, you're actually now fighting in 10-ounce gloves. Terence Crawford has obviously had the benefit of always fighting in smaller gloves, you know, less surface area, more chance for, you know, the knuckles and to be able to connect through, and there's less protection and less padding for his opponents. Could those extra 2 ounces take a little something off the shots? The shots are still going to be as accurate. That he's still going to fire them the same way, but could there be a little bit more protection from his opponent? Like, will Madrimov be able to take those shots slightly better? Because again, it's not as close to the knuckle as the 8 ounces would be. There's that on one side. A lot of people talk about Terence being the smaller man coming up to the weight division. Now, yes, it's true. He's come up to 154 pounds, but he realistically, if we're honest, he kind of outgrew 147 a little while ago. Like, we saw the shape he was in come weigh-in day against Errol Spence last year. Errol Spence, who also notoriously was dead at the 147 pound limit, looked in better condition than Terence Crawford on weigh-in day. And I think they did the weigh-in, and that was, I think that was the ceremonial weigh-in that we saw the day before at the press conference. Terence looked horrible on the stage, so his body was screaming to move up. And when people say, you know, the bigger, stronger guy, well, I think Terence is actually, if he's not taller, he's the exact same height as Madrimov. He's got a longer reach. I think his body, his frame, if you look at his frame's actually slightly, you know, it looks slightly bigger. Him and Madrimov actually, let's not forget, used to be in the 147 division. He moved to 154 because it was tied up. So he's also not the biggest of guys. They probably rehydrate to similar size. Outside of that, people say Madrimov would be the stronger of the two. I don't know if I agree. I've maintained numerous times Terence Crawford is one of the strongest guys pound for pound in boxing, period. And I don't know if Israel Madrimov is going to be able to impose size and will to bully Terence Crawford around the ring. People said that Errol Spence would be able to do it. Didn't happen. People said Sean Porter would be able to do it. Didn't happen. Like, size is not the way that you beat Terence Crawford in the ring. Like, you've got to basically outmaneuver him. Now, Madrimov has got some of the attributes to do that. He does hit heavy, but I don't know if his punches are as heavy as Crawford's. A lot of his punches are looping. Terence does very well against looping shots. It's straight shots that he usually suffers from, because he will come in at an angle where the straight shot will knock him back. Whereas the looping shot, he's normally able to either block those, evade them, or roll with them. So I look at this, and the whole time I'm looking at the fight, I can see that Madrimov will have some really big success in, especially like in the first part of it. I feel, you know, Terence Crawford always has 2 to 3 rounds where he's a lot more he's a lot more sort of compact, cautious, trying to understand and work out the distance, work out how he's going to approach a fight. But outside of that, I think that once he starts repeating certain patterns, Crawford, I feel, is going to start to read those patterns, and then from that point he's got another sort of 9 to 8 rounds left to sort of try and make a dent. So even though I do think that Madrimov is going to be leading this fight in those first couple of rounds, like, again, some exposure, some size, and that sort of area, I do think that it's going to turn around about sort of round 4 or 5, where Crawford's going to start getting into his groove, and it's going to be a bit competitive in that point. Now, I do think that both guys are going to catch each other clean in those first 4 or 5 rounds, and the telling will be, can either one take the shot, and who takes the shot best. I think Crawford might get a little bit buzzed by a couple of shots. Crawford, we know when he's hurt, the first thing he does is go forward to try and get that lick back, and sometimes that might put him into compromising positions rather than resetting and reassessing. He wants to get you back for hurting him in the first place. That could play into Madrimov's hands, but that could also be a situation where Madrimov hits him, thinks he's admiring his work to try and find something else, and then realizes that this guy's also coming back forward, and that maybe messes him up a bit. I'm not expecting you to be aggressive now. Like, it's supposed to be my moment. So, look, long and short of it, I think it's going to be a toss up between the two, sort of those first 4 to 5 rounds. And then once both guys have now initiated their patterns, initiated their gameplay, I just literally think Terence Crawford is going to have more ways ultimately to be able to unpick the locks. And I think that he's going to start, he's going to get on the front foot. I feel like he's going to try and sit in the pocket with Madrimov, show that again that this guy is not this bigger, stronger guy that you think he is. He's going to be trying to push him back, trying to, you know, sort of trying to get on the inside of the, you know, like I said, the hooks and the arching punches. And I feel like he's going to end up going through the middle several times, short uppercuts, body shots, stabbing to the body, and just slowly breaking Madrimov down. And then I see him managing to get to Madrimov, hurt Madrimov, and I can see him putting him down in about the 9th or the 10th round. I can see Madrimov getting up, trying to fight through valiantly, but then I can also see the fight ending in about round 11. So my prediction will be that Terence Crawford will get a late stoppage in about the 11th round. I think Madrimov will make the count on one time, maybe 2 occasions, but end up getting stopped by the referee or possibly getting pulled out by his corner. But that's my prediction on it. Leave yours down below, let me know what you guys think, and don't forget to like, subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one, but until then, this is Basis Picks, locked.